So with further ado, we have a great tree company, Davy Trees. They do all of our work here in the village. They do a great job for us. They even come out and for free put the lights on the tree when we have the tree lighting for us. That's a pretty tough job. And I want to show my appreciation to them any way we can, because they really take care of our village. Really nice. So arborist Bob Meoak, and he brought one of his employees along. So Bob, if you'll come up and let us know all you can about our trees and anybody else's trees.
Bob Meoak. I'm a board certified master arborist. I think there's 11 master arborists in the state of Ohio now. And I'm the district manager of the local Davy office. And when I talk about trees, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, especially in this venue, because I know that Mariemont loves their trees, and we appreciate that. I love trees. That's why I do what I do, and I feel like I'm being an environmental steward as part of my job. So it's got some fulfillment for me to be able to work with trees and living things. I often get to talk to kids groups. I just did several for Arbor Day. I talk to them, elementary school classes and stuff, and I try and tell them about the benefits of trees. And I get them talking about, tell me what trees do for us. And so I get all the answers about, we get furniture from them, we get tools from them, and we get food from them, fruits and nuts and maple syrup, and you get to climb them, and we get all those. And some of the more astute students will say, well, we get oxygen from them, and those things are all true. And then I get them to expand their list a little bit. But this is a little more sophisticated group. But I still want to tell you about some of the benefits, the values of trees. Some of them you may know, some of them you may not fully know. But the relationship between people and trees and between community and trees it's actually amazing. The co-benefits that happens is almost like trees and people. I mean, they're almost like perfect symbiotic couple, because you've got one organism that breathes in oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide, and you've got another organism that takes in carbon dioxide and lets out oxygen, and so they're like made for each other. So I'm going to try and be short, because there'll probably be some questions and answers, and hopefully answers. And so I want to leave some time, but my take-home message, I guess, is your trees have, and the trees in your community, the trees in your yard, your street trees have a lot of value and do a lot for you. And so I'm trying to encourage you to make them a priority, make them realize how important they are. Because I jotted down a few things that your trees are doing for you. They are fighting for you. So they are fighting erosion and water pollution. So with all these spring rains and stuff that we've had here recently, we would have massive erosion if not for the tree cover. So they keep our soils from washing away, and while they're doing that, they're also filtering that water. So trees act like giant sponges, suck up that water, and in the process they filter it, because they put it through their system and then transpire through the leaves, and so they filter the water as they go. One large tree can filter over 36 gallons of water in a year. That's a lot of water that your trees are absorbing and filtering for you, which would otherwise be rushing down your streets and down your streams and eroding banks and all that. Besides the water pollution, trees fight your air pollution. So they absorb odors, they absorb pollutant gases, and then they also filter out particulates in the air. According to U.S. Forest Service, tree cover reduces pollution by as much as 15%. Climate change. Trees absorb CO2, like we mentioned. They remove and store carbon while they release oxygen into the air. So in a year, a mature tree is going to absorb about as much CO2 as your car puts out, driving 26,000 miles in a year. So that's one mature tree. In a year, a mature tree produces enough oxygen for about 18 people to breathe, and that's kind of important. U.S. Forest Service, again, 100 trees, 100 mature trees will remove 53 tons of CO2 over the course of a year, and about 430 pounds of other pollutants from their environment each year. Trees fight falling home values. We all know that mature trees help property values. Most all the studies are anywhere from 10 to 15%, but your street trees also increase your home values. Street trees, tree-lined streets increase home values, increase the value of the whole community. They fight high energy costs, so they can reduce your summer AC needs by as much as 50%, your shade trees. And lots of statistics will show that a decent tree cover will cool a downtown urban area by as much as 10 degrees during the summer months. So that not only better living conditions, but that also saves on power plant costs and power plant emissions. City of Cincinnati, study they did with roughly 85,000 community trees. They estimated it saved residents $4.8 million in energy savings in a year. The city's trees. Trees fight economic downturns. Studies show that the more trees and landscape you have in a business district brings in more business. It also, a side benefit is tree-lined streets slow traffic. So not only helps with safety, but also they have time to look at the shop windows and look at what's going on. So it slows traffic down through business districts. Fight crime. They start fighting crime. So believe it or not, tree-intense areas have far less incidents of domestic violence, and they're more social. Neighborhoods and homes, on the other hand, that are barren have higher incidences of violence and crime. Another one you might not know: trees fight obesity and poor quality of life. So tree-lined environments encourage people to be out walking, activity, and there's statistics by the health industry, lots of them, lots of studies about that. And not only that, then you've got the studies about how patients that have trees outside their window heal faster and with less complications. Children with ADHD show less severity in their symptoms and stuff when they're exposed to nature. A study in the Netherlands showed that people that had very little treed area, green space within a kilometer of their house had much higher levels of depression and anxiety than people that had access to green space. Trees fight bad aesthetics and noise pollution. So we know the beauty of trees, but trees also hide the ugly. They block ugly concrete structures, they block parking garages, they block, the hideous house your neighbor painted weird colors. So trees have both positive and masking aesthetic qualities. And noise pollution, so Davy Trees, director of R&D, I was chatting with him about his PhD thesis, and it was on the effects of trees on noise pollution. So because of the emerald ash borer devastating some communities, it gave him an opportunity. He went into some areas that were heavy population of ash. Most of the trees in the area were ash trees. He did all kinds of sound readings in that community, knowing that these trees were dying soon. And so then 10 years later, he went back, did all the same sound readings, and after all these ash trees had been removed, and so you had a very sparse tree canopy. And it's an interesting study that he did, and interesting results he got. Human, he kind of categorized them into like nature type noises, the birds and waterfall and stuff like that, and then human type sounds like voices and traffic and that kind of stuff. You got dampening effects on noise in both categories, but in the human caused stuff, it was more dramatic. So it greatly dampened the traffic noises and other screaming, yelling kids. So, again, preachers of the choir, I know you love your trees. They're more valuable than you may think. They bring a lot of value to your community. I'm just hitting a few highlights here. And you know a lot of the other ones that the kids are throwing out to me when I'm talking to them at Arbor Day. Tree value to the communities have historically been difficult to quantify. So we got this developer coming in, wants to build a Walmart or something, and wants to cut all the trees down, and he'll throw all these numbers out about how how much economic development is going to occur because of this new retail establishment. And so in me as the arborist and left there stammering saying, yeah, but the trees, they've got some value, but it's been difficult to quantify it. But we're getting much better. We've got much better tools now to quantify the value the trees bring to the community. The Dave Gamstetter, Parks Department, City of Cincinnati, study he did here, this was a few years old, but he actually broke it down, and based on the money they were putting into the trees, they came up with an ROI of just over $4 on the dollar. The money they were putting in, they were getting back, and that was stormwater, air pollution abatement, energy savings, so they came up with that. So that's one study, but I encourage you, there's two tools I want to bring to your attention. One is called the National Tree Benefit Calculator. So that's U.S. Forest Service. You can go in there, give it the particulars of your tree, and it will tell you how much groundwater this thing's absorbing, what your approximate energy savings would be, those types of things. Another one is a program called iTree. Both of these are accessible on the web. And Davy Trees, along with U.S. Forest Service and some others, actually developed iTree. And I did, when I spoke to another group recently, I did a few case studies and pulled out, like a tree in Terrace Park or a river birch this size. And it'll actually list for that one tree, you give it the particulars, and it will tell you the cost savings that this is doing for your energy and everything over the course of the year. So we do this for schools. I've got big tags, like Price is Right type tags, that will fill this all out for a particular tree, and we'll put it on some of the trees when we give a talk in a park or something, or a schoolyard with the kids. And so they can see this tree, some of the benefits that this tree is actually producing in dollars. But for community organizations, civic organizations, when you're talking about putting money into things, allocating funds, those are useful tools to quantify some of the benefits that the trees are giving you. Some of them you know innately. You know you want trees on your street. You know they contribute to quality of life. There's some I didn't even mention about other health benefits and stuff of trees, but you know some of those innately. You know the beauty of trees, but that helps us quantify it. And those tools are getting more and more sophisticated. We didn't have those tools, or not very sophisticated tools in the past, but we're getting those tools. It's arming us, me as an arborist at least, when we go to cities and stuff, to fight for funding for trees, to preserve trees, to care for the trees, and to plant more trees, because we can defend our numbers, defend putting dollars toward the trees. So, again, my take-home message is your trees are probably more valuable than you realize. You realize they're valuable, they're probably even more valuable than that. So I'll take questions on trees.
Yeah, I'm just on the, just interested a little bit on the mechanism of filtration. So that when the water goes up, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, through like the phloem system, where the air goes into the leaf stoma, is that right?
Stomata, yes.
Stomata. But are you saying that the like the water does that go into the wood, and then like the gas, the particulates, those go into and stored in the, or whatever, get filtered into the leaf, and they deposit there?
Some of it is stored in the trunk, but a lot of it, so the water that's rushing by the tree will suck it up, and frankly, a lot of the pollutants, metals, will stay in the root system. So the root system sucks all that in, just uptakes water, so the tree is really a big vacuum system. So that stomata that's opened up, or you've got lenticels in the trunk that open up, it's really a big vacuum system that sucks up water. But those heavier materials stay in the root system. And when we talk about the cooling effects that trees do, I've compared to the kids before. Those stomata, you don't realize it's happening, but you've got all these trees that are letting out water vapor all around you. I tell them it's a lot like standing in the line at Kings Island on a hot summer day when they got those little misting fans. Your trees are doing that for you, and you don't even know it. Your trees are letting out that tiny water vapor all around you and cooling the air without you knowing it.
What's the best way that we can care for trees? I mean, I've heard back and forth, should they be mulched or not mulched? I mean, when should they be pruned, fertilized, vaccinated, wherever? But I mean, we love trees, but we don't all know the best way to take care of them.
So that could be a big subject. My company is happy to provide lots of materials on caring for trees. In fact, I could give a big stack so that you could have them for your next meeting of just general care tips for trees. So a couple general tips. I am a fan of mulch when done properly. Mulch does a few things. It holds the moisture in, it regulates moisture a bit, which is one of the biggest things it does. Frankly, for young trees, one of the biggest things it does is it keeps the string trimmer and the mower from getting it, which is a leading cause of death in young trees, getting girdled by the string trimmer or the mower hitting it around the trunk. And the mulch ring helps that. And it also regulates the temperature a bit. Done incorrectly, mulch can be negative. And so the volcano mulching, or will peel it up against the trunk, so it can be a health detriment to the tree. Done correctly, mulch is a good thing, and I always get the question on size of mulch rings, and my usual answer is as big as you can make it, really. I mean, as big as you're willing to make it, the tree's roots go there, and so as big as you can make it. Types of mulch, I mean, most of the mulches, any mulch almost is better than no mulch as far as the basic leading materials. The pine-based mulch I tend to prefer, frankly, rather than the hardwood mulch, and the reason being they're not a medium that the roots will grow into. So with the hardwood mulches, they work, but they are, especially if they're allowed to sit there and compact, the roots will go up into them and grow where they shouldn't be growing. So then when things get hot and dry, that's the first thing to dry out. So the pine-based mulches do a little better that way. Trees do need regular pruning, especially in urban environments because of safety issues and because of conflict with roofs and gutters and people's heads, so they need to be elevated in that. But really, how often and to what extent really depends on the type of tree and your needs. I mean, you don't need to prune for clearance if it's in your backyard somewhere, where you do over a street, and then safety and big oaks and all the rest. So like the bigger trees, I usually say 3 years cycle is a good rule of thumb for coming through. And then fertility. In a forest setting, trees have that thick leaf layer there that's breaking down. In an urban setting, we're mowing the grass and taking all the leaves away, and so fertility can assist urban trees. But I always like to make it clear that you want a fertilizer that's designed for trees. Quick release fertilizers like you use for your turf is not good for trees. You don't want that big quick burst of growth in trees. You want a slow release, something very slow to give it a gradual, just so to make sure there's nutrients there for it to use, for it to have available. You don't want to push a bunch of growth. You set yourself up for problems, fire blight and aphids and other problems. But I'm happy to gather some materials on tree care in general and make them available to you for your next meeting.
The ash trees. Will all the ash trees get decimated just like the elm trees did at one point in time, or is there no?
It is a sad plight, the ash trees, and we do have some products, chemicals that are pretty effective if you want to preserve a single ash tree. They're proven pretty effective, like a 2-year treatment. But the ones that are not being treated, we have the benefit of seeing what's happened in other markets where they got before us, like Detroit and Chicago and such. And what we see has happened is almost a bell curve where they start, you don't even know they're there for a while, and then all of a sudden ashes all over the city are dying, and ashes, and then it gets to the top of the hill, top of the crest, and you start seeing less and less of them as, frankly, the population gets thinned out, the population of ash trees. But I can't tell you, and I don't think anybody can tell you how long it's going to last. The fact is there's new ash trees out in the forest that are coming up all the time, and so they're not going to completely decimate their host. They're going to be some, so I guess our best prediction is that it's going to greatly crash the population of this bug, and which means some ash trees in our urban environment, even without treatment, may still survive fine, but the bug's going to be with us for a long time. It's going to persist in forest areas, and we may get sporadic outbursts in areas as it comes out of the forest into the urban landscape. Yes?
Yeah, we have quite a few trees out here on Murray, and because of the power outages, make sure they come on in. They could, I think, trimmed them for a little bit, so they, down a little bit. What, I won't ask anything, what are those trees called that they're gonna plant?
The Duke took down,
Yeah,
the white pines, most of them. They were in the grid, is what he's talking about.
are those gonna create a lot of shade?
Oh, you mean the ones
No,
that
So
put it out?
he's asking which ones they're putting in.
We're putting in Fat Alberts and Muir maples, ones that only go 15 to 18 feet,
Yeah,
because we're not allowed to do it.
they will provide shade, but they're not they're not going to be near as tall as the ones that were in there, so it'll be limited to that extent. Fat Albert's a thick, a short, dense, fat Albert. Fat, it's almost an overgrown shrub, and so it's very shady under it, but it only gets 15, 18 feet tall,
Right.
and so I mean limited shade there. The it's around utility lines. There's a whole division of forestry called utility forestry that I'm not a utility forester, I'm an urban forester. They've got a difficult position because they're trying to preserve power to people and trying and you know, trying to treat the trees properly. What's happened across the country in utility forestry is, frankly, I think it's a good thing, but you don't see it as a good thing if it's your tree that's out there under the power line. But they're becoming much more, the power companies are becoming much more aggressive at just taking trees out rather than keep pruning them again and again, and then get these cycles, and they still get some, you know, fair amount of outages, and then they get people that are upset because their tree is butchered, frankly, because they cut one side of it, they cut a big V in it. And so to avoid all that, they're being much more aggressive about just removal of trees within about 10 feet of the power lines and doing stuff like planting just smaller, lower growth stuff. And so you can argue, and there are, people do argue the merits of which way to go, but that's seems to be the trend across the country of power companies, is they're being much more aggressive at just removing them and not having any trees within that strip. And of course, the communities that can afford it and where the ground conditions allow it, they try and go underground with the lines.
How do the tree roots, you know, deal with the underground power lines? We have underground utilities here in the building. But yet there's trees planted right on top of all those lines, right? It seems like
You gotta call before you dig.
But I mean, how do the roots, they don't grow and?
I mean, those are thick plastic, covered in thick plastic and stuff, and they will wrap around it. So it can be difficult ever getting a stump out if you want, or if you need to repair the line, it can be difficult. But in general, there's not a lot of problem with them damaging the line so much. If in really tight growing conditions where they don't have much room, they can damage it because they just got nowhere to go. It's just pure force of mass. They'll destroy power lines. But if they have areas for the roots to go, there's usually not a lot of them difficulty with them destroying the lines.
Getting back to the strip here where Duke took all our trees out. In our code, by the mayor and the authorities to do what we need to do. And Duke is going to give us money to buy these trees. And I met with him the other day. Turned in about $30,000 worth of leave. And I've got a couple tree people here in the village that are helping me. But can you tell me, now we've got a picture of it in your maple. It looks like a pretty tree.
It is.
And then the fat Alberts. What other tree? I mean, they showed me some trees and they just look weird. They would only grow 15 feet.
Right.
Is there any other tree that
yeah,
you
so
think of that would be?
I have, when I bring you those things, I've got a little booklet that talks about, you know, smaller trees. So, obviously, I mean, you're familiar with dogwood, some of those types of smaller trees. You can also do.
You didn't give us dogwood on your list because they say they can get higher.
They can get higher. So, fringe tree is one that's popular. That might be one of the ones that you're seeing looks weird. But
some of these things don't even look like trees.
yeah, and serviceberry, which looks a little like a cherry, but those also get a little higher than the power companies might like. And then, frankly, yeah, some of the choices are going to look more like shrubs than they are like trees, because that's the primary difference between a tree and a shrub.
Is there a dogwood I could plant that would be a certain dogwood that would?
Yeah, there are some dwarf varieties.
There are?
You would not believe how many varieties of dogwood there are. There's like 5,000 at least. And I know a fellow that cultivates dogwoods, and he's got a couple named after him. But there's an amazing number of dogwood cultivars, and so there are a few dwarfs. I'll have to look those up though.
Yeah, I'd like to know those because I'd like to plant some of those. Even though they haven't given me that on the list. But
Was red buds on your list?
Huh?
Were red buds on your list?
John, redbuds one we
Too high.
plant a lot of those.
Right.
Here too. Because I've got one in my side yard that's already about 25
Yeah.
tall. And I think they do well out there. They don't do well in the hot sun.
No, they don't. Well, dogwood and red buds are understory trees. They like to be under this partial shade of a bigger tree. So,
But so when you say dogwoods, is there a dwarf dogwood you think that can handle the sun, or is it
they're all the dogwood varieties pretty much are. I mean the Latin name, second name of dogwood is Florida. So corn is Florida. They like the sun.
If a tree, a hackberry, I'm thinking of, gets diseased and drops down the dead leaves, it's starting already. This is the 4th year for us in Mariemont. And it is our neighbor's tree. We've never had any problem with the tree. They want to keep it no matter what, and I understand that because it's tall, and when it's nice, it's green. But is it a good idea to try to saw off some of the limbs so that diseased, those leaves just fall all summer on our patio?
Absolutely, but like any other ailment, what we need is a correct diagnosis first. So there's several issues, a few issues that hackberry have that are pretty easily solved. So there's a woolly hackberry aphid that will curl up leaves and make a big mess, but it's pretty easily treated. And there's a few fungal diseases that they can get that can also be treated.
Can you do that?
So we just need to take a look at it and see what's going on, and then we can figure out whether it can
The
be treated
leaves
or whether.
have big balls on them.
Yeah, those are the leaf galls. I'm guessing that the two problems are unrelated. So the leaves curling up and falling is caused by something. The leaf galls it's kind of a cool thing. This is why I like arboriculture, because there's lots of interesting things that happen. But there's some wasps that lay their eggs in trees, and they don't really hurt the leaves, but they're ovipositor. When they lay the eggs, the tree produces, it's almost like scar tissue. So that is actually leaf tissue that's there, that's just a response to the leaf to that ovipositor injury. But it's usually not a health issue for the tree. So I think your other problem, I think the two different issues,
Okay.
and we just need to see what's going on, and then possibly it can be treated, possibly needs limbs cut off, but.
Do you come out and do that?
Yeah, we can get you a car, we can stop out and take a look and see what's going on.
I also have another question. With all the subdivisions that are still being built all over, not just this area, but all over, when they take all those trees down, which just breaks my heart, do they have to take all the trees down? At what rate are they being replaced? Somewhere are they being replaced, these trees that were somewhere?
A couple of answers to that question. So if they're being replaced or not, a lot of communities will have codes that say if you take these trees out, and then it applies to developers, they got to put so many trees back, whether it's on the edge or whatever. Or they have to pay big fines that go into the city
Well,
to be able to replant trees. So it depends on the community what their codes are there. As far as replanting, I'm part of a group in Cincinnati called Taking Root that's got a goal of planting 2 million trees by the year 2020.
Wow.
And we're a chunk of the way there. And the reason that group formed is because we've been losing so many trees to urbanization like that, but also to emerald ash borer and to Asian longhorn beetle, and actually to honeysuckle, invasive honeysuckle, to walnut twig borer. So we've got a lot of pressures on our urban forest, and many of us foresters and such, recognizing the value of trees, have kind of banded together in a group, and so we're trying to repopulate the greater Cincinnati area. There's a sister group in northern Kentucky called, I should know the name, I can't remember the name. But anyway, there's a sister group in northern Kentucky trying to do the same thing down there.
Who funds it, pays for it, the new trees?
It's
People make
a
donations?
it's a donation thing. They get some help from the National Arbor Day Foundation. They get some help from the Forest Service. We've gotten some grants, but it's mostly charitable thing. So takingroot.org It's the website. I encourage you, when we plant one, like I just planted a couple for you in Dale Park, and planted some at Patterson Elementary for Arbor Day. We go on there and we log those in, so we keep track of all these trees are being, keep our tally going as we plant trees, so we plant new trees.
If you were putting in a new tree in an urban environment like this, either backyard or front yard, what's the preferred variety?
The preferred variety. So the whole again take-home message here is right tree in right place. So it depends on what you're looking for, what your conditions you have, and what you're looking for. So are you looking for flowers? Are you looking for shade? Are you looking for it to stay small? Do you have limited space? Do you have a lot of space? So I can't tell you what the preferred variety is. It depends on what your needs are, what your, well, if you're looking at a shade tree or a flowering tree or whatever. And so consult your local arborist, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for a backyard, large.
Yeah, so there's several nice ones. I mean, the sugar maples are hard to beat, and the red maples will give you bright red colored. Sugar maples will give you yellow orange in the fall. There's some really nice locusts out that are thornless, honey locusts. Unfortunately, we need to stay away from ash right now. Some people are advising not to go with maples. I'm not one of those. The reason is that Asian longhorn beetle that's out in Bethel, Ohio, Fairmont County, out there, its preferred host is maple. It has a wide list of hosts, but its preferred is maple. But USDA is being very aggressive out there, and they've been able to contain that bug in other parts of the country, and so we're very hopeful that they can here. It doesn't fly like the emerald ash borer does. I mean, it does fly, but it doesn't fly very far. The adult only goes about less than 100 yards, and they're doing a fire line approach out there where if they find an infected tree, they take it down and every host tree within so far. And so they're being very aggressive, and I and they have high hopes that it will be effective at quarantining that at least.
Sometimes when you're traveling, you'll see where they'll come in, and I guess the lumber companies will there and then just go in. Just
Clear cut.
Clear cut, okay? What's the, I think they have to replant, I'm not sure of that part. But what's the most valuable tree that they're going after when they do something like that? Is it,
Cherry and walnut are key trees for the lumber industry. Those are the big diameter walnuts. Bring a big, so you can a big diameter walnut that's solid and straight. I mean, you can bring $700 or so for a log like that. And cherry's probably close second.
when they go for that, they probably look at a certain, they're probably mixed in all these areas too.
Right. This guy's been waiting.
It's my understanding that these foreign beetles and borers are come in mostly through importing of products. Is there anything being done to try to kill those
They are. They're
beetles
getting better.
in containers and such?
They're getting better. They've learned some of their lessons. So where both the emerald ash borer and the Asian longhorn beetle came in were through the pallets, not the material itself, but they were the pallets. So they were checking the cargo itself, but they weren't checking the pallets, and so they were in the pallets. And of all places for an Asian longhorn beetle outbreak, Bethel, Ohio seems pretty odd, but then you realize there's a pallet factory there, and that's what happened. Because otherwise, all the other outbreaks of Asian longhorn beetle were port cities, where they were bringing stuff in. But that one, there was a pallet factory there, so we had an outbreak there. But yes, and I don't know all that they're doing, but they recognize that they have to step up their quarantine and investigations of the new stuff coming into the country.
I just have a second real quick question. Is there a tree that is nearly impervious to any critter getting into it? I think of
Almost.
locust, as hard as that wood is.
They still get in there though. There's several, and leaves too, that like the locusts. But ginkgo tree, almost nothing eats a ginkgo. But just make sure you get a male one, or you'll want to cut it down yourself. The female ginkgos produce a fruit that's just one of the nastiest things you'll ever smell.
Because you've worked in the village and you're familiar with, I assume, most of our trees, what would you say are the general health of the trees in Mariemont? Are we in good shape here? Do we need to be doing some things?
In general, you are, but you have a mature trees population that's starting to cause you problems and will continue to cause you problems. Ripped up sidewalks and that kind of stuff, and you need a more diverse population as you go forward. You've got a lot of oaks, and as I talked with someone earlier, a couple of lessons we've learned from like the Dutch elm breakout that just destroyed whole areas, destroyed whole populations. I mean, they were a great street tree. They were like nothing hardly bothered them and stuff like that. And then Dutch elm came and you lose them in your entire tree population. And then we're going through that with the ash. Arborists all over the country are preaching the message of diversity, of selection. So don't plant, one whole neighborhood with one tree, because then one thing comes in and wipes it all out. And not only is it devastating for the neighborhood that way, it's devastating cost-wise. I mean, the city of Cleveland found that out when they had to take down 800 elm trees in 1 year before they killed somebody. And you're talking lots of money just in taking them down, even before you start replanting them or anything. And so diversity, and so as Mariemont replants trees, it needs to look at what's already there and try and introduce more diversity into their tree population. Go ahead.
Is the redwood tree one of the highest trees?
Yeah, so we just lost that big one that they used to drive through, which was pretty cool.
Oh.
Yeah.
How?
It is, and the close relative of that in this area is the bald cypress, which you go down to Spring Grove Cemetery and they got amazing bald cypress there, and they have the knees that they stick up above the water, which are neat to see, and that's actually so they can collect air through there. But the bald cypress is a close relative of the sequoias and giant redwoods. My company, we sponsor a calendar. Some of you may have gotten one before, one of our clients, called Big Tree Calendar. So we try and identify the biggest trees of their species around the country. And so each month is a national champion. And so on the cover this year is one of the giant sequoias. But each month is one of the national champions. In Spring Grove, if you go down to Spring Grove, they have a couple national champions in there. They just lost one, and they have several state champions. And they have a tree map. You just ask them where for the tree map, and you can go and find these champion trees. Yeah.
How about Cincinnati Nature Center? What's the majority of them out there? Because those are tall. What kind of trees are those?
I don't know. I haven't been down there in a while. I don't remember. Sorry.
What happened to the big redwood that the cars could drive through?
Yeah, it finally failed. They haven't let cars drive through anymore for several years now. The hole was still there, the road was going through it, but they diverted traffic around it. But during a big storm, it finally went over. That was, I remember when that was, maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Did the whole fluid weaken it?
Possibly some, but I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did some. But the living part of the tree is around the outer edge. The middle is not actually conducted, but that middle part does add to structure, add to strength some. So I'm sure it didn't help, for sure. And frankly, all those cars all those years all over the root system probably, I'm sure, contributed as well. Which is why they learned and started restricting it finally. But yeah, I was sad to lose that giant. But trees are a renewable resource, which is cool. I mean, we got, actually, in some parts of the country, we've got more trees than we had many years ago, just because of replanting efforts. Other parts of the world, you don't. You look at, look at an old map, old drawing map, really, I guess, of England, Great Britain. That was a giant forest at one time. That was just, I mean, I'm sure, I guess a lot of areas were, but not that long ago. Great Britain was just a giant, thick forest. Anyway, but renewable resource. We clear them out to make cities and such and make homes, but we can replant so we can coexist well. I'm taking up a lot of time, I don't know.
One thing I want to ask, we have a beach grove, and I understand, I know running over the roots of trees is not good. People walking through there, or lights and stuff like that. Is a beech tree probably one of the worst for that type of thing? Because we really don't want a lot of people.
Yeah, frankly, so I worked with one of the ladies in the back, asked about building houses and how they clear all the trees out and can't we keep some of the trees. I've done a lot of consulting with some more progressive contractors trying to save trees when they're building houses because they know that adds a lot of value. And so there are things that can be done where you can build in close proximity to a tree if you take the proper precautions on the front end. But that being said, what we would consider the nut trees, so beech or beech nut, beech trees, walnuts, pecans, they don't tolerate root disturbance well at all. So root compaction, soil, grade changes, if your water all of a sudden changes from your water was flowing there and you've changed the grade a little bit, so now you're not getting near as much water. The nut trees don't tolerate that well at all. I mean, some trees, like a hackberry, some of those, you can do a lot. You can do a lot to the roots and stuff like that, and they'll still be fine. They'll just generate new roots, but the nut trees don't. If you have to have traffic over areas where you've got tree roots, there are things you can take. Frankly, a thick layer of wood chips allows the roots to still breathe, but helps with the compaction. So mulch or wood chips or something like that, a thick layer can help alleviate that. And also, frankly, having that mulch in there, you'll get a lot more earthworm activity and stuff like that, which also helps.
One more question. Time for one more question. Anyone has one?
No, go ahead.
Are we ready in remote locations to replant ash trees and so forth? Or is it too soon?
I would say it's too soon. I think as it goes through these different areas, and it's gone through Detroit and Chicago and some other areas first, and then it's come down to us, and now it's gotten down to Nashville and other areas. We're going to find trees that were resistant. We're going to find ash trees that survived it without any kind of human intervention, and we can cultivate those and try and grow resistant ash trees, but it's going to take time. We've got to find those trees, and then we've got to cultivate them, and so that's the process we've taken with some other diseases and pests. So we find the resistant ones and cultivate them, and then grow new ones from that. And so, but that's going to take time, and so it's probably too early now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Meoak.